NBA playoffs. I guess we can start with the East because that's where we are. And we can go matchup by matchup. The only one that I've been paying attention to is the Miami Atlanta series
Mhm.
because I'm a Miami fan. So yeah, we'll start with that. What are your thoughts thus far?
Well, my thoughts of that series. It's a lot of people don't pay attention to it, but they should because Miami is the best team in the East. They were the best team in the regular season. They've showed it so far in the series with Kyle Lowry. Yes, he got a little bit hurt, but he's a trooper. He'll push through. He's a guy out of Philly. So he'll push through. He'll play. He won't back down from a fight. He's shown it. He showed it with Toronto. He's shown it with Miami. And then you've got, of course, Jimmy Butler. Put up a 40-point performance early in the series. And every game, he's just getting better. He's proving more and more how clutch he is in these playoff moments. And then you have Miami's got great bench presence. They can rotate guys with their starters. I know they have PJ Tucker usually as the starter, but you got guys coming off the bench like Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero. These are fantastic scorers and shooters. So that makes them a legitimate threat. And I don't see how Atlanta gets through this series alive because Miami's just too good.
The one concern I have is we've blown some leads. Obviously, we blew the lead in game 3, but the other thing with Lowry's injuries, I think was it reported as a hamstring?
I believe so, yes.
Those could be kind of tricky. So hopefully,
Yeah.
fingers crossed, we can get the win. I think we're playing today, aren't we? I'm pretty sure we're playing today.
Yeah, you play tonight at 7 on TNT.
Hopefully, we get through that. We can get through that win,
Yeah.
and we can get through the rest of the series without him and let him rest up because that would be nice to get him some rest. The other thing that I noticed in this series, having not paid attention to the Heat for a lot of the season, was the undrafted guys that Coach Spo and Pat Riley have done it again. Nick Struss, Caleb Martin, and Vincent. Just like I don't know how they continue to do that.
No, it's been incredible. You hit the head on the nail. Like Struess has been phenomenal. He's been shooting beyond the arc, lights out. He's better in the corner, I find, than maybe at the top of the key. But when he's shooting the ball, he's just great. And it's like, okay, they go to guard Jimmy Butler, they go to guard Lowry or somebody else, like bam. And you leave a guy like Struss open, and he's just able to hit these shots. And it's pick your poison, but either way, the Heat are going to score on you. It's just how can you stop them? That's the problem for a lot of these teams, especially Atlanta for now.
Yeah, I think last point on them. Game 3 looked like that was as good a performance as you're gonna. I know Trae Young didn't play well, but as a team, it looked like one of those games where it was like they played almost as well as they could have, and they squeaked it out. And so for me as a Miami fan, I'm like, all right, that's fine. Y'all can have that one.
Yeah.
We'll win the next 2, and then fingers crossed, obviously. But
right.
Like tonight, I think is a must win. If it gets to 2-2, then it'll be tricky. But I think we'll be all right.
Yeah, and I agree. I think if it goes 2-2, it can be tricky. I mean, as a Sixers fan, it was last year. I mean, Atlanta's a great team. Trae Young, DeAndre Hunter, who didn't play last year, is playing this year. Kevin Huerter. You got John Collins. You've got guys who can definitely play. But I think Atlanta's just still missing another star to play alongside Trae Young in order for them to really go somewhere, like to really make a deep impact in the playoffs.
Yeah. I think we'll see maybe another year of development from Hunter and Collins, and maybe one or two other pieces. They'll be there next year. All right, second series, Boston, Brooklyn. Obviously, giving the seedings, you'd expect the 3-0 Boston to be where it is. But given the talent that Brooklyn has, everyone expected this to be a much closer series. Although the games have been pretty close, even though Boston's been up 3-0. The only thing what I know about this series is that Boston has done an extremely good job on Kevin Durant.
Yes.
Given the length and stuff that they have. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, and I picked Boston in the beginning of the series just because of that. They have the length and the guys who can guard. They have Marcus Smart, the defensive player of the year. He's not typically guarding Durant, but you got guys like Grant Williams, Jason Tatum, who have great length, great height, and are agile. They can move. That's the key thing, is that they're big guys who can move. They're not like your typical general centers or power forwards, which will just stay in the key and move maybe 5-10 feet here and there. No, these guys will move with them, like PJ Tucker of the Miami Heat. And that's what makes that's what Durant's having such a hard problem with. And you saw it last night. For those who watched, Durant was just struggling basket after basket, especially in the fourth. It was like, where's the all-star that we, and this MVP that we've seen, we've appreciated as fans? Like, where is he? Because this isn't the Durant that we're accustomed to. And now you're like, okay, yeah, they're getting Ben Simmons maybe for this game 4, but this Ben Simmons hasn't played in a year, really. He hasn't been on the court with other guys against teams that are in his face, breathing down his neck, that sort of thing. And so he'll only be playing maybe 15 minutes next game. And is that really going to help them get over the hurdle and get them back into the series? Maybe, but I just don't think so. I think Boston's got this.
What's your take on the I've seen a lot of tweets that Steve Nash is the worst coach in the NBA. What's your take on that, right? Because I've not paid that much attention, but I watched Steve Nash's interview with JJ Redick. I think it was like almost a year ago at this point, but and some others, and he seems like he has an idea of what he wants, like how he wants his teams to play. But I haven't really watched to know, like, is there any validity to these hot takes, or is it an overreaction due to them being down 3-0?
I think there might be a little bit of both. I mean, I can't really say because I'm not there, but like, if he wasn't a good coach, he would be fired. He would have been gone a long time ago. And we've seen moments where it's been Durant and Kyrie where they put on performances where it's been like they're putting together 75 points between the two of them, and then stopping Brooklyn from scoring is virtually impossible. So yeah, he doesn't really have that playoff experience. I mean, he's been in the playoffs before as a player, but he hasn't been a coach in the playoffs really that much. And so he's going up against a team. Okay, yeah, it's a new coach in Boston, but this Boston team has so much playoff experience. I mean, they know what they're doing. And so I think that's the problem more so, is that there's guys, yeah, Durant's been there, Kyrie's been there, but there's these young guys on Brooklyn that haven't really seen playoff time. And now they're being told to put on this performance while one of their leaders, Durant, is just struggling tremendously.
You think they keep him around next year, Steve Nash, and then they give him you think they give him like a full year with Ben Simmons, assuming he's healthy, to see kind of how that works out?
Yeah, I think they do give him another year. I mean, yeah, they aren't, the expectation was an NBA championship. But that's not entirely his fault where they are now. Like, if Kyrie, let's say he had been vaccinated, but I know sometimes it's for religious purposes, and I'm fully understanding of that. But if he had gotten vaccinated in the beginning of the season with Durant, it's highly likely that they wouldn't have been in the playoff or the play-in series. They would have been probably a 4 or 5 seed at the worst. And then who knows, if Kyrie had been there in the beginning of the year, would they have traded Harden? Would they, even if they had traded Harden, they'd have Ben Simmons. Like, they would have more time being as a unit than Kyrie Irving playing only away games for a limited amount of time until the very end of the season, and then leading into the playoffs. And now you've got Ben Simmons, will he play or not, trying to factor him in some way. And so, yeah, I don't think Nash is fully to blame.
Yeah. The Harden situation is a bit interesting for me. And so
Mhm.
we'll skip the Milwaukee series to jump into the Philly Toronto one because the Harden is a good segue into that. But the Harden one is interesting. When they were doing the All-Star draft, did you see that clip of like
Yeah.
of Barkley saying like, "Oh, Hart, like he'll play tomorrow." It's like,
Yeah.
what's your take on what's going on? Because I haven't. He put up a couple good performances in Philly, I think, when he first got there, and Embiid was like, "Oh, he's amazing," and then after that, you haven't really heard much. I don't. Has he even been playing?
Yeah. So he's been playing, but the thing is with Harden, first off, he's not as fast, and it's visible. He's not as fast as he once was before the hamstring issues last year.
Mm-hmm.
So getting off the edge and turning the corner, he's a little bit slower. Aside from that, though, he's still a fantastic player. But why he's not getting this high attention is because he doesn't have to be that star that he was in Brooklyn. He doesn't have to put up 30 points a game a night. He all he has to do is facilitate the ball, maybe score 15 to 25 points somewhere in between there, because he does have other guys around him like Embiid, Maxi, Harris. He's got guys around him who can also score. So it's a different role than he had in Houston and in Brooklyn. He has a lighter role that makes it easier on him, I feel like, and also easier on everyone else because I mean, sometimes he can be a lot, he personality wise, but he's been fantastic. I mean, he hasn't said really anything negative. He's been a team player, and that's good to see.
So I think you guys are up 2-1. You guys being Philly,
Hmm.
correct? You guys are up 2-1.
No, we're 3-1.
3-1. Okay, so
Uh,
what's been your thoughts so far? Because I think Siakam had a couple of good games, didn't he? And then it just seems to me
mhm.
like Toronto just doesn't have enough, really.
Yeah, so we were up 3-0 until yesterday. Siakam put up a playoff high, um, career playoff high yesterday. Yeah, he then went on to proceed and call Joel Embiid soft, basically. um, so I don't think Embiid's going to take that too kindly. Embiid did give the refs a sarcastic clap at the end of the game because I mean, yes, Embiid and Harden, that's their game. Is they do things to try and get you into foul trouble. That's just what
Hmm.
they do. But I did feel like in general, there were some missed calls here and there, both sides, but um, there were a few calls that Embiid should have gotten for fouls on the Raptors, calls on him. But as far as the series as a whole, it's been dominant Philly. Raptors, was it game 2 or 3? They had like a huge lead, like ridiculous lead. The only reason why it wasn't more present was because Boston came back against Brooklyn. But Toronto had a huge lead. Thought it was all Toronto. I think it was game 3, all Toronto, and then here come the Sixers. Usually, Sixers, what we're accustomed to is seeing, okay, the Sixers have a sizable lead. They've got like a 10 to 15 point lead, and then them blowing it gradually, like they did with Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a little bit different because we're not seeing that. We're seeing, okay, they're playing consistent basketball. If they are behind, we see, hey, they can make a comeback against Toronto. Now, Toronto, they're missing a few guys. Um, so it's hard to say, can they do that against, I think, yeah, they'd be playing Miami basically next
Yeah.
series. If Miami continues and if Philadelphia continues. But can they do that against a Miami? Probably a little bit more difficult.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Makes sense. All right, so let's get on to the last series in the East, and
Mhm.
then we'll go kind of predictions for the rest of
Yeah.
the rest of the playoffs in the East, and then we'll move to the West.
Mhm.
All right, so we got Milwaukee, Chicago. I think they're actually playing right now.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at the score.
I
Oh,
think
Milwaukee's
it's
up by
19.
17. Yeah. So
19.
that'll put it up
Yeah.
3-1, assuming
Yeah.
they don't blow that lead.
Right.
That's another one that seems like another one where it's like Milwaukee just has a bit too much for Chicago.
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, it's weird because it was 1-1 in the series, and then you hear Chris Middleton's out for at least the rest of this series and probably the entire next series, which can be a real problem for them if they were to continue into the next series and play likely Boston, because Boston's been fantastic. They've been probably the best team in the East so far this playoffs. But as far as the series goes, I mean, Milwaukee's played great. Grayson Allen has stepped up. I mean, he's been shooting 20 plus. He had 22 above 20 points last game, and then he has over 20 this game. Drew Holiday has transformed into this well-rounded guard that plays fantastic defense and can shoot the ball as well. And then, of course, you have Giannis, one of the MVP candidates. You got to basically double team in order to stop him. And so I think it's a little bit too much for Chicago, but I thought Chicago would put up a little bit more of a fight especially after Chris Middleton went down, because they've got DeRozan. Even without Lonzo Ball, they've got DeRozan, they've got Vucevic. So they have
Zach LaVine is still there also, right?
Yeah, and Zach LaVine as well. So I'm a little surprised that they've kind of just slugged off. I thought they would be a little bit better matchup.
All right, predictions time. So you got Miami to close out the series, you think?
Yep.
Yeah, I'd say I'd agree with that. And so then that matchup in the second round would be Philly Toronto, which I think we both think that Philly will close that one out.
Yeah.
All right, so then we got Miami, Philly, and then the other two, Boston and Milwaukee, you think probably to close out the last two. So all the top four seeds move on. All right, so then we've got Miami, Philly. Who you got? You got to go with your team?
It was a pretty even series in the regular season, but Philly did hold back a few guys. Like, I think one or two of the games they didn't play Harden. One of them they didn't play Embiid. I think Embiid's a little bit too much for Bam, but I also think it's very difficult to guard. Philadelphia had problems. The reason why they lost last year is because they couldn't stop the perimeter shooting that Atlanta had, similar to what Miami has. They have Duncan Robinson, Tyler Hero. But I would say it's going to go, at least it goes 6 or 7. I don't think this is going to be a short series. I think the Sixers have just enough that I would say Sixers and 7, but it's a real toss-up, flip of the coin. Yeah.
I feel you. I got to go with my boys, of course.
Right. No,
of course. All right, then Boston, Milwaukee, and the other second round matchup. I feel like Boston has enough for that, especially if Middleton is still out.
Yeah, so this will be a little bit different of a beast, though, for Boston, because it's not like they're facing – Brooklyn doesn't really have a dominant center for power forward, and Giannis is that guy.
Yeah.
He dominates in the paint and such. So who do you have guard him? You can't really have Marcus Smart. He's too small. You can't have Jaylen Brown. He's not strong enough. It's hard to say. I would I think as good as Boston has been, I'd actually take the Bucks in 6.
Bucks in 6.
Yeah.
All right. So we'll go off. All right, so we got Bucks, and then we'll do both. How about that? We'll do both matchups. Okay. So Bucks Philly or Bucks Miami. So we'll go Bucks Philly first. Who would you take in that one?
I'd actually go Philly. Now, this isn't. Yes, it's a little biased, but but in the regular season, there was a few guys who could really guard Giannis well. And one of them was Matisse Thybulle. Matisse isn't able to play. He wasn't able to play last game and the game before that because of the COVID restriction, because he had gotten like one shot. I don't know. Basically, he couldn't play the last 2 games. but he was very good guarding Giannis in the regular season between him and Embiid guarding Giannis. And I would take the Sixers for that reason, is because they are very good at guarding Giannis. And with the status of Chris Middleton being up in the air, I think it's just too much for Milwaukee, even though they are the defending champs. I think it's just a little too much.
Yeah, they've looked a little bit worse this year than they did last year, I think. Also, so all right. So if it goes Miami, Milwaukee, who you got with that one?
I'd also. It's a tough one, but I think as long as Kyle Lowry's injury isn't indefinite, like if he's out the rest of the postseason or something like that, or a long period of time, I would go Miami, because I think Kyle Lowry can match up against Drew Holiday. And then I think, Giannis will probably score in this hypothetical series. He'd score basically all over Miami. But you do have PJ Tucker. So PJ Tucker played with him and knows a little bit about him. So I think that would kind of provide an inside ability to help guard him.
Yeah, I think Bam also has he's got the right body type.
Right.
He's about, was he like 6'9", 6'10"? Giannis has an inch or two on him, but he can move as well. He's got the length.
Right.
So I don't know. We'll see. So basically, whoever wins the Miami Philly series is going to the finals, is what we're hearing.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I would take that. I think we can concur on that, sir.
Yeah.
All right. May the best man win.
As long as we don't blow these series.
Yeah, of course not. This is all hypothetical. Knock on wood, of course. Okay.
Make it